Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. You are still watching Signature Morning here on Signature TV. And now we're switching gears to another interesting conversation. We're going to be talking about Nigeria in the eyes of the world and other issues. And our guest will be joining us live from Sokoto this morning, Professor Yahaya Baba. He's a comparative and legislative study expert. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now let's start from, Nigeria is often described, as the giant of Africa, but we are plagued with a lot of issues as it is now. So first of all, I'd like to know, how do you think that Nigeria is currently perceived in the international community?
Well, just like you said, Nigeria at independence and the first 2 decades after independence, the country is described as the giant of Africa. The country that provides the needed leadership the continent requires in terms of support for countries that are struggling with colonial rule, with vestiges of colonialism, countries that are struggling after independence. Intervention of the country in conflict-ridden states, providing support and interventions in the areas of peacekeeping, peace enforcement, and peace building, and also providing aid to weaker nations, weaker economies within the sub-region of Africa and in the entire continent of Africa. We know Nigeria is a founding member of the Organization of African Unity, and one country that solidly spearheaded the move for the creation or establishment of the Economic Community of West African States, and the same country also single-handedly, muted the idea of ECOWAS monitoring group, that is the ECOMOG, at the height of conflicts in Sierra Leone in Liberia, and we knew also what the country has offered to the world in terms of providing support to the United Nations peacekeeping missions all across the world, in Congo, in Lebanon, in different parts, in Czechoslovakia, in different parts of the world. Nigeria is respected and recognized as an emerging power, as a power in Africa, as an emerging power in Africa. But then the late 80s, early 90s, and up until now, in the last 3 decades, Nigeria has been struggling, from a giant to a crippled giant, and with the ravages of terrorism, of banditry, of insurgency, of ethno-religious conflicts, with crisis of governance, with crisis of leadership, with crisis of corruption and economic downturns, the country is now seen by many in the world as a giant no more.
All right. So now, in your view, what would you say are the key factors that shape Nigeria's image abroad? Would you say it's the politics or the culture or the economy? What exactly is it, that are those things that shape how Nigeria is being seen, in other countries?
Well, I think the bottom line of Nigeria's crisis has to do with leadership and governance. A governance crisis, leadership failure have actually contributed immensely to Nigeria's economic crisis, and the crisis of the economy has also contributed to largely to the crisis of security the country is going through, is witnessing today. The inability of the government to address concerns of the people, to address the issues of poverty, to address the issue of illiteracy, to address the issues of employment, to address the issues of empowerment, to address the issues of rural infrastructure, rural and urban infrastructure, have all combined to contribute to agitations across different parts of the country, which influence the rise, the emergence and the rise and spread of different terror and armed groups across different parts of the country. We know what the country went through with the Niger Delta militias, which have over there since the Nigerians, even before Nigerians returned to democracy, In the dying days of military regimes, we've known the agitations in the Niger Delta, the armed struggle, the struggle for resource control, the struggle for better living condition in the Niger Delta, the struggle for better environmental governance, in the Niger Delta that even led to the, assassination of key important people, including Ken Saro-Wiwa, who is a Stalin writer and world-recognized, laureate. And then, of course, which affected Nigeria's oil production and also Nigeria's oil export, which also contributed to the downturns and the downslope of the Nigerian economy. And then of recent, we've seen how poverty, unemployment, grievances led to the emergence of a terror group called the Boko Haram, which actually contributed in smearing Nigeria's image in the international community. And the ravages of this terror group had actually undermined not only the security of the region within which this terror group operates, but also undermined national security. And then of recent, very recently, the emergence and spread of armed banditry in the northwestern Nigeria and incessant ethno-religious conflicts and violence in the north-central Nigeria had actually, ravaged the food production regions of the country and had affected the poverty profile of the people of this very particular region and the country at large. Kidnapping for ransom, massive destruction and displacement of villages and communities by the armed bandits have actually led to the emergence of dire humanitarian conditions and crisis in the northwest of Nigeria. Many children, school-going children who were hitherto peacefully living in their communities and villages are now sacked and thrown into the urban areas without proper shelter, without proper care, without access to basic amenities and facilities of life, including schools that are basic for children. Now, the out-of-school children, the number and the percentage of out-of-school children in this region, in this conflict region, in the northeast, in the north central, in the northwest of Nigeria, had actually risen skyrocketingly, and this has actually affected the image of the country, a country that is known and that has actually pride itself in providing support and intervention to various countries that are undergoing or that are experiencing conflict and violence, have now become incapable of handling conflict and violence within its own shores. So this largely contributed to the increased image crisis, of Nigeria as a country, which was known in the last 30 years as the giant of Africa, as the natural leader of Africa, the largest black nation on the surface of the earth, and the biggest economy, so to say, then in the continent of Africa, and of course the country with the largest population in Africa has now become a shadow of its own former self.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.